What's the best piece of advice you've been taught? My grandpa always told me, read every contract like you're looking for buried treasure. I thought it was just another one of his weird sayings until it saved me from losing $45,000 in college tuition. I got accepted to Palmer University with a full scholarship covering everything: tuition, housing, meal plan, even books. The only catch was maintaining a 3.8 GPA. One tiny slip and I'd lose it all. No pressure, right? First semester went great. Perfect 4.0. But halfway through second semester, my mom got diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. Between hospital visits and helping take care of my little sister, my grades started slipping. Professor Bennett's advanced chemistry class was killing me. 2 weeks before finals, I got an email from the scholarship office. Due to your current academic standing, 3.75 GPA, your scholarship will be terminated effective immediately. I nearly threw up. My family couldn't afford even one semester without that scholarship. We'd already spent our savings on Mom's treatment. That night, instead of studying, I remembered Grandpa's advice. I dug out my scholarship contract and started reading. Not skimming, actually reading every single word. At 3 a.m., fueled by energy drinks and desperation, I found it. Section 7.3. Academic performance reviews occur at the conclusion of each semester. Mid-semester termination requires documented evidence of academic dishonesty or criminal conduct. My hands were shaking as I read it again. They couldn't cancel my scholarship mid-semester just for grades. It was right there in black and white. I printed everything: the contract, the email, my current grades, and walked straight to Dean Adams's office at 8 a.m. His secretary tried stopping me, but I walked right past her. Your office is violating Section 7.3, I said, dropping the papers on his desk. You can't terminate my scholarship until after finals. He picked up the contract, annoyed at first, then confused. He read it 3 times before calling Sandra from the scholarship office. Why are we terminating scholarships mid-semester? He asked her. New policy from the board, she said. Too many students were gaming the system, pulling straight A's until they secured their scholarships, then slacking off. Policy doesn't override signed contracts, I said. Unless you can prove academic dishonesty or criminal conduct, that scholarship stays active until semester end. The dean looked impressed. She's right, Sandra. Reinstate her scholarship immediately. But I wasn't done. Also, according to Section 12.1, any incorrect termination requires a formal review of the student's case by the academic board. I smiled, including potential GPA adjustments for extenuating circumstances. Dean Adams raised his eyebrows. Extenuating circumstances, I showed him my mom's medical records and my sister's guardianship papers. Explained how I was maintaining a 3.75 despite everything. 2 days later, I got another email. The board had voted to adjust the scholarship requirements. New minimum 3.7 GPA. Professor Bennett even gave me an extension on my final project after the dean spoke to him. I ended the semester with a 3.82. The next year, every new scholarship contract had completely different language about mid-semester termination, but I was already safely locked into my original agreement. That one piece of advice from my grandpa, read every contract like you're looking for buried treasure, changed my entire life. I used to roll my eyes whenever he said it. He was the kind of man who carried a magnifying glass in his pocket, just in case, and I thought he was just being his usual paranoid self. But that night, sitting in my dorm with nothing but a cup of instant noodles and a flashlight, I finally understood what he meant. When I read that contract word by word, it didn't feel like reading anymore. It felt like digging. Like searching for a lifeline buried under piles of legal jargon and fine print no one ever bothers to check. And when I found Section 7.3, it really did feel like finding treasure. Except instead of gold, it was my entire future. Marching into Dean Adams's office that morning, I was terrified. My hands were clammy, my voice shaking, but my conviction was solid. I'd spent all night memorizing that clause, repeating it until I could quote it backward. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just a student begging for leniency. I was someone who knew my rights. When the dean realized I was right, I saw something shift in his expression: respect. Not sympathy, not pity, but genuine respect. It was the first time an authority figure at that university looked at me like an equal. Afterward, I called my grandpa. He answered in his usual gravelly voice, half asleep. Kiddo, you sound like you found something important. Yeah, I told him. $45,000 worth of important. He laughed so hard he started coughing. That's my girl. Never sign your name to something you haven't read twice. Once with your eyes, once with your gut. When Mom heard the news, she cried. Not just because I kept my scholarship, but because she said Grandpa's stubbornness had finally rubbed off on me. I guess stubbornness runs in the family, the good kind, the kind that keeps you standing when everything else tries to knock you down. By the time finals came around, I studied harder than I ever had in my life. I'd go to the hospital after classes, sit by Mom's bed reading flashcards while she dozed off, then go home and write lab reports until 2 a.m. When the grades came in, I had a 3.82, barely over the requirement, but enough. Enough to prove I could do it. A few months later, Dean Adams sent me a formal letter commending my professionalism and attention to contractual detail. He said my case had led to important procedural revisions across the university. Translation: they'd rewritten the rules because one desperate student refused to be quiet. That letter is framed on my desk now, right next to a photo of Grandpa holding his magnifying glass like a trophy. Every time I look at it, I remember what that old man always said when people called him overly cautious. They can call you crazy now. Kiddo, but it's better than being sorry later. So yeah, that's the best piece of advice I've ever been taught. Read every contract like you're hunting for buried treasure. Because sometimes what you find hidden in the fine print isn't just a clause. It's your way out, your protection, your power. And if you're lucky, it might just save your future story too. I found lube and Viagra in my wife's purse. I didn't say a word. I swapped them out for chili extract and laxatives. Her boss exploded right there in the passenger area in the middle of their flight. They had to call for help because the whole plane was a mess. But the worst part was when they realized what I'd done with the rubber. Chapter 1. Something's off about you lately. I never imagined I'd become the kind of man who searched his wife's purse. I had always believed in boundaries, deep, unshakable trust. After all, Michelle and I had been married for 9 years. We'd survived job layoffs, a miscarriage, her mother's cancer diagnosis, or so I thought. But over the past 6 months, something had shifted. Michelle's kisses became robotic, her hugs hollow. Her work trips increased. She started dressing up more for conferences. She laughed more at texts that didn't include me. Worst of all, she stopped talking to me about anything real. The first time I noticed the weird silence, it was 11:43 p.m. She came home from a late meeting, smelling like a musky cologne that definitely wasn't mine. I asked if everything was okay. She smiled sweetly, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "I'm just tired. Love you." Who I wanted to believe her, but something inside me, call it gut instinct, or the voice of a man who's been too quiet for too long, started screaming. So one morning, while she was in the shower getting ready for yet another weekend trip with her team, I peeked into her purse for the first time in nearly a decade. That's when I found it. A small tube of lubricant and a Viagra blister pack, half empty. I just stood there, the objects in my hand trembling slightly. My breath caught, my face went cold. My ears rang. She didn't need Viagra for me. Never had. And she certainly didn't need lube unless she was doing something she shouldn't be doing. It was like the lights in my head suddenly flicked on. I didn't confront her, not yet. No yelling, no dramatic outburst, no begging, just silence. Because right then and there, a new plan was born. One that would unfold midair, thousands of feet above sea level in front of dozens of witnesses and leave her and her boss in the most humiliating situation imaginable. They had betrayed me in secret, but I would make sure their punishment was very, very public. Chapter 2. The silent setup begins. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed beside her as she softly snored. That same purse resting on the dresser like it hadn't just shattered my entire belief in our marriage. My mind spun through fury, pain, and finally precision. By morning, I had a plan so cold and clear it scared even me. Michelle thought I was just some mild-mannered IT guy, a safe husband who wouldn't ever rock the boat. What she forgot is that I spent years engineering systems, testing failures, exploiting weaknesses, writing backdoor codes. If she wanted to sneak around, fine. I would rewrite the rules of the game, and I would do it without a word. Step 1. My kitchen became my lab. I took the lube, emptied it carefully. Then with gloves and a small syringe, I filled the tube with chili extract oil, a highly concentrated version used by professional pranksters, mixed with just a hint of capsaicin resin from my hot sauce collection. One touch of it would cause an immediate burning inferno in sensitive places. Next, the Viagra pack. I swapped the pills with extra-strength laxatives I had crushed and reformed into capsules. They looked identical. But these weren't just mild cleanse pills. These were the kind that would turn your insides into a war zone within 30 minutes, especially if mixed with alcohol, which Michelle's flights always included. Finally, the condoms. Oh yes. She had a small packet tucked neatly in a side zipper. I opened one using a steaming technique that wouldn't break the seal. And inside, I added just a tiny, almost invisible layer of itching powder. Fine enough to be undetected, potent enough to leave a grown man scratching like he'd rolled through poison ivy. Then I resealed everything. By the time I placed her purse back exactly where it had been, I was calm. I made her coffee. I even kissed her cheek as she got ready for her trip. She smiled. "You're being sweet today," she said. I smiled back. "You deserve it." Step 2, watching her go. That afternoon, she left for her 3-day leadership retreat in Atlanta. Her boss, Mr. Kenneth Weller, yes, the same man whose name I'd found popping up in her notifications, was going too. I helped her load the Uber, waved as she pulled off. Then I pulled out my phone and opened Flight Radar. I watched her flight take off in real time. She thought I was staying behind, heartbroken. But I was already waiting to see just how explosive her betrayal would become. Chapter 3, 36,000 FT of humiliation. By the time Michelle and her boss boarded the plane, I had already received the flight updates on my phone. I watched their Delta Airbus A321 climb into the sky. I sat on my couch with popcorn, almost like I was watching a live-action thriller I wrote myself. And oh, the climax was about to hit. Meanwhile, in first class, Michelle messaged me before takeoff. "Michelle, just boarded. We're on time. See you in a few days." The fake heart emoji nearly made me throw my phone. From there, radio silence until 1 to 2 hours into the flight. That's when things got turbulent, but not because of weather. It started with a little heat. According to a friend of mine who just happened to work in Delta customer support, there was an incident reported midair. Male passenger in seat 1A experiencing intense sweating, discomfort, and violent gastrointestinal issues, vomiting, and diarrhea. Cabin crew requesting medical assistance upon landing. Yep, that was Kenneth Weller, my wife's boss, and apparently her in-flight entertainment. But that wasn't even the beginning of the chaos. Reports from the crew, later leaked on Reddit of all places, described a surreal scene. He screamed and lunged out of his seat, clutching his stomach and pants. Passengers near him began panicking due to the smell. He collapsed in the aisle, his pants were soiled. The female passenger with him, his companion, was in visible distress and crying. The burn, the itch, the fallout. Michelle wasn't doing much better. The chili extract in the lube. She had clearly used it multiple times. According to the report, she was squirming in pain, repeatedly excusing herself to the restroom until they locked it off for hazard control. And the final straw, that condom. Apparently, they tried to get busy in the lavatory before Kenneth's stomach betrayed him. Witnesses said she ran out like she was on fire, legs trembling, holding her inner thighs and crying, "It's burning." Why is it burning? The flight attendants thought it was an allergic reaction, but no, it was a customized consequence. The phone blew up. As soon as the plane landed, my phone vibrated nonstop. 6 messages, 3 missed calls, then 12. Then it shot up like fireworks. By midnight, 38 missed calls from Michelle. 11 from unknown numbers, which I assumed were Kenneth's friends or someone from the airline. By dawn, 116 missed calls. I didn't answer any of them, but I read the texts. "Michelle, what did you do?" "Michelle, I'm in the ER. This isn't funny." "Michelle, you psycho. You ruined my life." "Michelle, please just tell me what you used." "It won't stop." "Michelle, Kenneth's in the ICU. Please, please." "Michelle, I'm so sorry. I need you. We can talk." I laughed and turned off my phone because I was just getting started. Chapter 4, the fallout was public and spectacular. By the next day, Michelle wasn't just dealing with physical pain. The aftermath of what happened on that flight was becoming a public spectacle. And I made sure it reached everyone who needed to see it. Reddit, Facebook, and one viral post. Someone from the plane had already posted on Reddit. "I was on Delta 451 yesterday. A man in first class had a full-blown emergency. Pooped his pants. Woman with him kept yelling that something was burning down there. It looked like a scene from Bridesmaids. But real life, whole front of the plane smelled. It was insane. Within hours, the post blew up. Within a day, it made Twitter. And then local news in Atlanta picked it up. The headline, Medical Emergency on Flight 451. 2 passengers hospitalized after in-flight incident. And guess who they accidentally identified in the footage walking off the plane, covered with blankets and escorted by paramedics? Yep, Michelle and Kenneth. No names were mentioned, but I recognized her trembling hands clutching her purse, and so did others. Kenneth's wife reacts. Kenneth had a wife, Rachel, a well-known interior designer with a vindictive streak and a very public Instagram. That night, she posted this. When your husband's business trip ends in diarrhea, burns, and humiliation, it might be time for a renovation. Don't worry, his office and our prenup are next on the list. I sent her an anonymous message through a burner account. Just a photo of Michelle and Kenneth holding hands at a hotel 2 weeks ago. The timestamp did the rest. She responded with a single emoji fire. And then she posted another story with the caption, "This is what betrayal looks like. And don't worry, he's not keeping the house." Michelle's firm called, and then came the investigation. Michelle was on track to make partner at her law firm. But when you miss a huge corporate litigation hearing because you're being treated in an airport ER for third-degree burns in sensitive places, questions start flying, especially when a whistleblower email is sent to the firm with photos of her purse containing supplies. A screenshot of the Reddit post, a link to the leaked video of her limping off the plane. Guess who sent that email? And just like that, the firm placed her on indefinite leave pending investigation. Michelle finally got through. That night, I finally answered one of her hundreds of calls. Me, hello, Michelle. Horse crying, why? Why would you do this to me? Me? Why would you do this to us, Michelle? Michelle, I made a mistake. But you ruined everything. Me, correction. I ended everything you already ruined. I just added fireworks. Michelle, please, we can fix this. I'll quit my job. I'll cut off Kenneth. We can start therapy. Me. I already started something else. It's called divorce proceedings. Then I hung up and I never answered again. Chapter 5. The Rubber That Ruined Everything. As Michelle disappeared into silence and shame, I focused on the final detail of my revenge. The rubber? Yes, the protection I had quietly swapped out before their little trip. And this part wasn't just humiliating. It had real consequences. The final swap, not just a prank. See, what Michelle didn't know was that the special rubber I left in her purse wasn't just tampered with. It was strategically laced on the inside with a very diluted but long-acting chili oil compound designed to mimic a delayed allergic reaction. I'd done my research. The oil wouldn't cause visible burns, but it would create intense itching, discomfort, and rashes several hours later in the affected area. Something that Kenneth began experiencing the morning after the flight when they arrived at their hotel. He had no idea what was happening to him. Michelle, equally clueless, panicked and rushed him to a nearby urgent care in Miami. The diagnosis, likely reaction to latex or lubricant, possibly an irritant allergy. You should abstain from sexual activity until fully healed. Kenneth's pride was bruised deeply, but it was about to get worse. Kenneth's wife filed first. Rachel, Kenneth's wife, wasted no time. Armed with my anonymous tip, she filed for divorce immediately. Her legal team was brutal. She even subpoenaed the hotel's security footage showing Kenneth and Michelle checking in hand. Then came the internal review at Kenneth's own firm. One email from Rachel along with screenshots of their affair, flight incident, and ER documentation, and Kenneth was put on administrative leave. Turns out he'd violated corporate ethics guidelines by sleeping with an external legal contractor, Michelle, who had signed a disclosure agreement tied to an ongoing case. This was enough to launch an internal compliance investigation. By the end of the week, Kenneth was suspended without pay. I finalized my divorce. With a twist, I quietly hired my own attorney. Divorce proceedings moved fast. Michelle had no financial leverage. Remember, I had frozen our joint accounts the moment she boarded the plane. She came to the negotiation table begging for mercy. I granted her one thing. "You can keep your car," I said, signing the paper. What I didn't tell her? That I had transferred the title to my name weeks ago. And 2 days later, the repo team I hired picked it up from her apartment complex in full view of her neighbors. One last thing, the email to her boss. As the dust settled, I sent one final email from a clean burner account. It was addressed to Michelle's former supervising partner at the law firm, the same one who had mentored her. Subject line, conflict of interest, ethics violation, and an inconvenient affair. Attached were a timeline of her affair with Kenneth. The vacation request form she'd submitted under false pretenses. A copy of the Reddit story that had gone viral. A screenshot of her laughing over text. I love mixing business with pleasure. The result? The firm quietly updated their public roster. Michelle's name was removed. But the story didn't end there. Michelle still didn't know one final thing. The entire incident on the plane, it was filmed by a passenger. And that footage, blurry but damning, was making its rounds. TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, millions of views. The caption, "When your affair ends in flames and poop, Karma Airlines, ladies and gentlemen." Chapter 6. Her fall was inevitable, but I made sure it was public. After the plane disaster, after the urgent care visit, after the layoffs, the legal notices, the social media meltdown, Michelle still thought she had a chance to save face. She tried to rebrand herself online, deleted her old profiles, created a Healing Journey Instagram page, began posting positive affirmations and mental health awareness quotes. She painted herself as a victim of a malicious ex trying to rebuild after betrayal. But she didn't know I still had one more move left to play. The interview that changed everything. A popular relationship podcast, one that covered viral cheating stories, reached out to me. They had seen the TikTok flight video and heard about the lube and laxative revenge. They invited me anonymously. I accepted. I told everything without naming names, but the details were unmistakable. A high-profile female lawyer, an affair with a senior executive at a tech company, a romantic trip turned into a biohazard, a video that went viral. Listeners connected the dots instantly. Comments flooded in. This sounds like that poop plane video. Wait, is this the Michelle and Kenneth thing from Reddit? OMG, I knew it wasn't food poisoning. Within 48 hours, her name was trending again. Sponsors pulled out. Collaborators ghosted the law firm she was trying to start on her own, completely dead. No one wanted to be associated with Poopgate attorney. Every sponsorship she had lined up for her rebrand pulled. Coaching clients gone. She posted a tearful Instagram reel saying, "I made mistakes, but this isn't fair. I'm being harassed." But no one cared anymore because karma doesn't negotiate. The final blow, the condom fundraiser. Remember the rubber I swapped? Well, someone started a fake charity page. Not me, but someone who had followed the whole drama. It was called the Michelle and Ken Cleanup Fund. For every messy affair, a fresh wipe. It sold prank condoms and chili-infused lube for novelty gag gifts. It went viral. Thousands bought it. She tried to sue the site for defamation, but the page owner countered that it was parody under free speech. She lost. Now every time someone searched her name, Google suggested Michelle Spicy Lube. Michelle Plain Story, Michelle Cheating Lawyer, Chili Rubber Epilogue. I moved on. She's still stuck. It's been a year. I'm in a new relationship. Honest, kind, private. I live quietly, invest smartly, and sleep peacefully. As for Michelle, she's become a ghost online and offline. Kenneth moved to another state, changed his number. Rachel, his ex-wife, is thriving and remarried. Michelle tried to message me once. Can we talk? Just closure. I didn't respond because some betrayals deserve to echo. And mine echoed across 30,000 FT, a courtroom, the internet, and finally her entire legacy. Was this revenge perfectly justified, or should the storm have raged harder? Drop your verdict below. I read every single one. Hit like if you crave justice and share this story with someone who needs its fire. Subscribe to Revenge Exposed because here betrayals don't sleep. They hunt their owners. Every shadow hides a reckoning. Every mask breaks and every betrayal is answered. Stay sharp, stay unbroken, stay tuned.